He was just a quiet kid, sitting in a small-town diner hoping for a simple meal after school. But that day, peace wasn't on the menu. A group of older boys decided to make him their target, mocking his skin, his clothes, his very existence. Laughter filled the room, while no one stood up for him. What they didn't know was that the boy's father wasn't just any man. He was someone powerful, someone dangerous. And when word reached him, everything changed. This wasn't just an insult, it was a declaration of war. It was a quiet Friday afternoon in the small town of Millstone. The smell of fresh coffee drifted from the local diner, where 16-year-old Zion Hayes often stopped after school. He was polite, soft-spoken, and carried a sketchbook everywhere he went, drawing superheroes, cities, and dreams bigger than the place he lived in. For Zion, the diner wasn't just a stop for fries and milkshakes. It was his little escape, a corner of normalcy in a world that didn't always see him as equal. His father, Marcus Hayes, was rarely seen in town. People whispered about him, a businessman with quiet influence and mysterious connections. To Zion, though, he was just Dad, a man who taught him respect, strength, and how to walk away from trouble, even when it found him. That afternoon, the diner was busier than usual. The laughter of teenagers bounced off the walls, mixing with the clatter of dishes and old country music. Zion took his usual seat by the window, flipping open his sketchbook. For a moment, everything felt right. Safe, even. But safety can vanish in seconds. From across the room, a boy named Chase Miller, known for his loud mouth and expensive sneakers, noticed Zion sitting alone. He smirked, nudging his friends, the kind of smirk that meant nothing good was coming. As the jukebox hummed and waitresses passed by, Zion remained in his quiet world, completely unaware that a storm was forming just a few tables away. A storm that would test everything his father ever taught him. Because before the day ended, Zion's name would be on everyone's lips, and the town of Millstone would learn what happens when cruelty meets consequence. The moment Chase Miller stood up from his booth, the laughter around the diner seemed to shift. His friends followed, grinning like hyenas circling prey. Zion Hayes didn't notice at first. His world was still lines and shapes, his pencil scratching softly against the paper. But when a shadow fell across his sketchbook, he looked up. Chase leaned over his table, the smell of soda and arrogance heavy in the air. "What are you drawing, Picasso?" he sneered, snatching the sketchbook before Zion could react. The pages fluttered open, revealing drawings of superheroes, city skylines, and portraits of people who looked like Zion. Strong, proud, defiant. Chase's smirk widened. "Cute. Trying to draw yourself saving the world?" He laughed, holding the sketchbook high as his friends chuckled behind him. Zion reached out carefully, his voice calm. "Can I have that back, please?" The diner quieted slightly. Not in solidarity, but curiosity. The waitress glanced over, hesitated, then turned away. No one wanted trouble. Not here. Not over that. Chase tilted his head, mocking the tone. "Please?" He stepped closer. "You think saying please makes you better than me?" Zion froze. He could feel the heat rising in his chest, his father's voice echoing in his mind. "Pick your battles, son. Walk away when you can." But before he could move, Chase shoved the sketchbook into his chest hard. "You don't belong here anyway," he spat. "Go draw in your own neighborhood." A few people looked away. Others whispered. The sound of a soda can popping echoed too loud in the silence. Zion's hands shook slightly. Not from fear, but from restraint. He picked up his sketchbook, dusting off the cover, refusing to give Chase what he wanted, a reaction. But Chase wasn't done. He stepped forward again, eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue." Zion turned toward the door, ready to leave. He'd done what his father taught him. Kept calm, stayed silent, walked away. Then it happened. A slap. Loud, sharp, sudden. Chase's hand struck across Zion's face, echoing through the diner. The sound froze time. Plates clattered, forks paused midair, conversations died. Zion's head snapped to the side, his eyes wide with shock more than pain. Chase stood there, breathing hard, smirking like he'd just won something. "Guess I had to teach you some respect," he said, his voice low and venomous. The diner was silent except for the buzz of the ceiling fan. No one moved. No one spoke. Someone started filming on their phone, the quiet click of a camera app slicing through the air. Zion didn't hit back. He didn't shout. He just looked up, calm, cold, steady. Then he whispered something Chase couldn't quite hear. Something that made the smirk falter for just a second. Because what Chase didn't know, what no one in that diner knew, was that the man Zion would call next wasn't just his father. He was the one man in Millstone no one dared cross. Zion walked out quietly, his cheek burning, his dignity intact. Chase laughed behind him, but even his voice trembled slightly. Minutes later, the bell above the diner door rang again. Not for Zion, but for what was coming. And the town of Millstone was about to learn that some battles don't end when you walk away. They only begin. The sun had barely set when Marcus Hayes stepped into the diner. The room that had been loud and carefree hours earlier now felt suffocating still. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every eye turned to him. Tall, composed, dressed in a dark suit that didn't belong in a small-town diner. He didn't need to speak for the air to change. Marcus scanned the room, his gaze cold but calm. On the floor, a faint scuff mark near the booth told him enough. His son's sketchbook lay open, pages bent, the outline of a tear smudging a pencil line. He turned slowly toward the counter where Chase Miller and his friend sat, laughing nervously over untouched sodas. Chase looked up and froze. "For Marcus Hayes," someone whispered near the kitchen. "The man from the city. One people don't cross." Marcus's voice was steady, almost quiet. "Which one of you touched my son?" The question didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a promise. Chase swallowed hard, his earlier arrogance melting into silence. His friends shifted in their seats, glancing toward the door, hoping for a way out. No one spoke. No one dared. Marcus took a slow step forward. "You think because he's quiet, because of the color of his skin, you can treat him like that?" His eyes didn't blink. Made him bleed in front of people who said nothing. The tension was unbearable. Even the clock on the wall seemed to hold its tick. Chase tried to laugh, but his voice cracked. "I didn't mean—" Marcus raised his hand slightly, not to strike, but to silence. Diner felt smaller, the walls closer. "Remember this moment for the rest of your life," he said softly. "'Cause men like you always do. They finally meet the consequences they never thought would come." Turned and walked out, leaving nothing but silence and the faint sound of his footsteps. Shouting. Threats. Just an emptiness that made everyone in that diner feel the weight of what they had allowed to happen. That night wasn't over. Outside, engines rumbled, black cars pulling up to the curb. Stone was about to learn that silence has a price. Next morning, the diner was quieter than it had ever been. It had spread through Millstone, not just about the slap, but about what followed. Miller's family packed up within days, behind a house that no one wanted to buy. The people who had watched in silence that afternoon now looked at each other differently. Guilt, shame, uncomfortable awareness of their own silence. Ion Hayes didn't care about revenge, or wanted fear, but respect. His father never spoke about that night again. Message was clear. It means nothing if it doesn't protect the innocent. Past. Yet the memory of that slap lingered like a bruise on the town's conscience. Some people started stepping in when they saw cruelty. Others avoided eye contact, hoping time would bury what happened. Stories like Zion's don't fade, they echo. Remind us of the ugly truths hiding in plain sight. The quiet racism, the everyday cruelty. People look away until it's too late. Ion, the incident changed everything. Sketches became bolder, no longer heroes in capes but faces. Faces of kids who looked like him. It started to speak for those who couldn't. Slowly, people began to listen, because this wasn't just about one boy and one diner. About all the moments that go unseen, all the people who stay silent when they should stand up. Maybe that's the real question. More Zions will it take before silence stops being the easy choice?